I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Saints, joined by Butch Rosenbalm. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you, Joel?
I am good. I am good. I love the Star Trek figures too. So,
I'm doing some
George A.
rearranging down here in the Butch Cave.
The I sit here in my kitchen, so I have two posters on the wall. One's a King Kong poster, and one's a Barnabas Collins poster. So, but we're here to discuss George A. Romero's classic, Night of the Living Dead. Plus, I want to get your thoughts on Return of the Living Dead too while we're here.
Right.
So, when did you first see George A. Romero's classic?
I knew you were going to lead off with that question, and I've been thinking about it. So, I was over at my friend Marshall Lewis's house. I guess I was around 13. I got to tell you a quick backstory. I guess I was around 3, 4, 5, and my great grandfather had passed away, and went to the funeral, and someone, possibly my one of my grandparents or one of my parents, wanted me to go down and tell great granddad goodbye. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I developed an intense fear of dead people. So I had kind of avoided Night of the Living Dead just for that reason. And then my friend Marshall was like, "Oh, come on, man, let's watch this." And teenage boy, "Oh yeah, 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 I've seen this, yeah." And he had this is like 82, 83, 84, and he had this huge, like, god, 10-foot satellite, and dialed it in from somewhere. And as the movie kept going, I would get up and I would like look out. They had this huge pane glass window, and he's like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I just thought I saw somebody out there." I mean, dude, Joel, I can't, I honestly admit, this was my worst nightmare come to life. Dead people coming back to life, wanting to eat you. And I didn't sleep very well for the next 3 days. But once I got past that, horror movies just opened up for me. And other than The Exorcist, nothing has really just scared the hell out of me like Night of the Living Dead did.
I blame my fear of this movie all where I showed my mother. Here's the thing. I went to go watch the remake, and we're going to talk about that too. The remake. I went to go watch the remake as a kid on VHS. My mom walked in on me. She goes, "What are you watching?" I said, "I'm watching the 1990 Night of the Living Dead movie," and I didn't know it was a remake. I did not, you know.
Yeah.
My mom, and the movie had just started. Like the credits started, where the car is pulling up to the driveway, to the cemetery. My mom hits the stop button, ejects the VHS. She goes, "You do not watch that movie first." And she had rented George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. And she said, "You watch this one first, then you watch the remake." I'm like, "What?" It's the first time I had heard the word remake because I was still a kid. And I want to say this was late 1990. I want to say this was December. It was before Christmas. I know that. And so she puts in the black and white version. And somebody had died right after Christmas. So we're going to the graveyard after the funeral home. And even the funeral home, all I kept thinking about was the zombies, was the living dead. And I
Mm-hmm.
would not approach the coffin while the body was laying there. I
Oh,
would. My mom just sat there. She knew why. She knew why.
yeah.
And she's smiling ear to ear. She goes, "It's not real. You know that." And I said, I know that." And I went up, and it was our neighbor, and she was a really nice lady. And I told her I was sorry she was gone. And my mom snuck up behind me and grabbed my hand. I just jumped because I didn't hear her, and she just she did it on purpose.
Moms, you gotta love them.
You do, you do. But
Hey, I got a couple things I want to show you real quick, if you don't
Sure,
mind.
sure.
Here is
Oh, cool.
the complete 9/11 Dead film book.
Cool.
Here is my copy of The Zombies That Ate Pittsburgh. And what makes mine different from anybody else's? Autographed by George Romero.
Oh, nice.
And he put, this was the second time I met him, and he put, "Why are you following me around?" Because I told him I had met him in Chicago in 2000 at the premiere of Bruiser, and he signed my Dawn of the Dead novelization. And he said, "Oh, did you like it?" And we talked a little bit, and so he put that in there. Something I'm kind of proud of. I don't know if you ever heard of the Save the Church at the Evansville Cemetery about 10 years ago. If you donated so much, you got this little one sheet poster.
Cool.
And of course, my prerequisite, multiple copies. Not counting all the DVDs, or excuse me, VHS that I had, but anybody that watches it, if you ever want to watch the best version of Living Dead, I keep forgetting that right there. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is the version to get. My wife was making fun of me. I got that for Christmas a couple years ago. My wife was making fun of me because at the beginning, when Johnny and Barbara are driving around in the cemetery, I'm like, "Oh my God, you can see the tire tracks." And she's like, "Oh my God, you're excited about tire tracks." It's just an amazing transfer. So,
Yeah.
okay, I got that out of the way.
But what did you think of the original movie? Here's this black and white movie. You watch this car pull up into this dirt road. They're going into the cemetery, and there's this brother and sister, and they're coming to pay their respects to their dad. And you sort of see this guy as she's getting up off the ground, the woman Barbara, and her brother's teasing her, and he said, "You're still afraid to come here." So sort of like how my mom teased me. It's funny because this guy's teasing his sister, not knowing here's this zombie coming toward
Yeah.
him. And what were your thoughts on that?
I think the great thing about the drive through to the cemetery and through the cemetery is it builds. You know something's coming. And the whole conversation between Johnny and Barbara, to me, has got to be one of the most realistic conversations between a brother and a sister in any film. Because I have a sister, she's 2 years older, and that would have been us if we were that age at that time. Probably not the Yiddish, "Boys, you'll be damned to hell." But I love that. And then that movie is started. You don't even realize it, and it started. And it really once it gets going, there's no let up,
I,
especially
lo-
for poor Barbara.
I love the car. George A. Romero did this right, and it's copied in every horror movie with the keys not in the car, or the woman forgetting who had the keys. She gets to the car, and there she goes for the ignition, and there's no keys. But then she hits the brake release, which was smart. I love this whole sequence, how he shoots this opening, and then this car chase where you have the zombie chasing the car. Now he doesn't have to chase it far because it hits the tree. But what were your thoughts on the way George A. Romero shot this whole movie?
As our mutual friend Patrick McRae may have told you, it would be hard to find a bigger George Romero fan than me. So let me just go ahead and strike my colors. I love it because every time I watch it, and even when I try to watch it with a fresh frame of mind, it's like, okay, she gets in the car, she can't find the keys. My mind will go, okay, well, what about? And then he's filming that. What about the brake release? What about this? Well, you need to lock the door and all that. Interesting story you may not know. The reason why the car hits the tree is I forget whose mother's car it was. I think it was maybe guy that plays Johnny, whose name is escaped, Russ Steiner. But the car was in a wreck, And to cover up the the wreck, he wrote in that she hit the tree. But it does so good. It flows so well through that scene. It You don't even really think about it. It was just a really good point. And it comes back to her, it comes back to the zombie, it goes back and forth, and it just follows her. I think it's great. Of course, I'm completely biased.
No, not at all. I really like how after she wrecks the car, she gets out of the passenger side because it's leaning up against the tree. The driver's side door is leaning up against the tree, and she's running and running. And when she gets to this house, she's just scared.
Yeah,
And what really scares her too is the dead body upstairs. You see the skull, the blood dripping down on her arm. This you talk about sheer, literally scared and almost scared to death. This woman almost fits that.
well, even before she finds the body, the all the this oh crap, all the animal heads that are stuffed and mounted, and
Yep.
I never thought that stuffed animal heads would be scary, but it works. And it's, but also you're going into somebody's house that you don't know.
Right.
You don't know who's in there. You don't know what you're going to find. I mean, she's not that far from Wisconsin. She could have been going into Ed Gein's house.
Yeah.
So it works. And the music, especially when she first gets in, it's like that. It just, yeah, it works so well. And then she starts trying to put herself together, but she's not going to get there. And then she runs out the door, and then there's those bright lights, and here comes Ben. And I wish I could look and watch the film in a more historical context, in a theater, and watch all the people, maybe in the South like I am. And here comes this black guy, and he's going to be your hero. And they're like, what? But Ben and Dwayne Jones is just so awesome in the role too. So
Yeah, I love the fact that George A. Romero has an African American protagonist. Here's somebody who is somewhat of the hero of the movie, or at least he's trying to be in every way. He literally is out in front doing a lot of the legwork of this film. And by the time he gets all the windows and stuff boarded up, here come the people from underneath the basement. And they're like, well, we thought you were one of those things attacking her, because he says about her screaming. And I'm like, I love his reaction. It's so real.
yeah, and he destroyed. Harry Cooper's like, um, well, like I said, we heard her screaming, and we thought it was those things in the house. And then he's like, wait, and he goes, well, wait a minute, you just said you couldn't hear anything. So, man, I wish you would get your story straight. And he's just destroying, Harry Cooper's BS.
Yeah.
Harry, God bless it. Yeah, he's just not a fun character. But as his actor, I like to always say whenever he get interviewed, it's Kara Schoen's father. I can't think of his name at the moment. I'm sorry, but he'd always look at the camera and go, "Just remember, Cooper was right. The basement was the safest place."
Yeah, because the interesting part is Ben gets down there and is safe by the end of the film. It's really weird that because when we get into the remake, that's really interesting too, how
Oh yeah,
they change that a bit. But you have the basement literally the safest place. Ben isn't a zombie by the end of the
no,
film, but he gets shot, and that's really what was shocking. But I guess I get it because he's sort of sluggish coming out, so maybe.
been up all night.
Yep, he's been so he looks, dead tired,
Yep, unintended.
Yeah, right, pun intended. And then you hear the shot, bang, and I'm like, no, he was alive.
I showed Night of the Living Dead to one of my friends, I'm sorry, one of my nieces, my two nieces, back in the late '80s, and by then of course, I was a big George Romero fan, and they both sat through it, and one of them looked at me, and just after, just when they start the end credits and that little montage, and she looked at me and she goes, and he lived through all that. She was so mad, and it's like that is the perfect reaction.
Right. Right. What did you think of the explosion in George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, the gas pump scene? What an explosion, right?
Oh yeah, it for a little. Let's be honest, amateur film.
Right.
Uh, I'm not trying to speak ill of anyone. I have the highest regard of all the folks involved. I mean, they did commercials, but this was going to be their first film, and it really it's impressive. Even when Ben, the camera goes and shows him going back, I kind of feel that way. Um, Poor Tom and Judy, not the sharpest knives in the drawer.
No.
Though I think Tom was a little bit sharper, but like I remember, as I said, I showed this to my nieces, and she's like, "She's so dumb. What's her problem?" Talking about Judy, and it's like, this is 20 years ago. You don't really understand. Society roles for women were different then, and you didn't have women like jumping ahead to films in Lori Caradilli in Day of the Dead. These women getting up and kicking ass.
Right.
You had Barbara who went catatonic, and Judy who couldn't be without her man. I mean, really the best woman in the film of Not Living Dead is Helen Cooper, played by my former Facebook friend Marilyn Eastman, who actually, I'm proud to say, she sent me a friend's request before she passed.
Cool.
She was, her character. God bless her. She's like the smartest one. I remember every time I watch it, I just think her and Ben should just like slip out the back. But of course, she's not going to leave. She's not going to leave the little girl. So
yeah, I really felt sorry for Barbara here. She's literally catatonic in this movie. I mean, she's sitting there on that couch just in shock. And were you shocked by Johnny's zombie turn?
yes, the first time I saw it, I was just like, I remember thinking, God, this, the final roundup, if you will, in the house, and they're making it in. It's like, man, things look bad. Oh shit.
Yeah.
What is? I don't think you could make it any worse. And then he pulls her back out, and that's one of those great things at the beginning when they're in the cemetery, and he's putting those gloves on. I remember thinking the first time I saw it, why is he putting these gloves on? So you can recognize him later.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just like, and Ben just has this completely defeated look on his face. It's like, I say, all right, fine, I'll go in the basement.
Yeah.
It kind of tears at you. Poor Barbara. She finally either gets it together or gets it together enough to fight and to do something, and then she just gets a literal gut punch, and it's it for her.
Yeah. She's really, again, it's really interesting because, like you said, women at the time weren't the heroines of the most movies you saw. And even like one of my favorite westerns is Once Upon a Time in the West, and the top billing is Claudia Carnell, but
Yeah.
she's more of a damsel than anything in that movie.
Yeah, and she's basically there for scenery. I mean, she doesn't really do a whole lot, but good God, she's gorgeous.
Right, right. And that's the thing. It's like men were the heroes of the film in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Well, the 80s, you started to get the women.
That
Is
definitely
really when,
changed, but yeah.
you know, in your opinion, and I know that maybe this is a bit off topic, what film do you think started that where we saw more female protagonists and more action?
Uh, Probably Aliens, the sequel
Yeah.
to Alien, and George's Day of the Dead, though not as well seen. Uh, those are the two I always look to that really you start to, hey, wait a minute. we have moved away from Barbara not being able to do anything, and Judy, who's tied to her man. Um, actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'm going to go back to like Pam Grier and Coffee and Sugar Hill. Can't think of the lead actress's name at the moment. I'm getting old and I can't remember anything. But a lot of those black exploitation films, you start having strong women who are like, "Oh hell no, you ain't saving me."
Right.
Or at the very least, they're right there with them. Okay, yeah, toss me some more bullets. Sure, bang bang.
Yep.
But I guess more of the more mainstream, more widespread, is probably Aliens.
Yeah.
With Sigourney Weaver.
So overall, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. So let's put it against the 1990 remake. Which is the better film to you?
Man, you want me to choose between my two four-legged kids?
Yeah.
It's hard to pick against George's or 68. I'll refer to them by the year, 68 and 90.
Right.
68 started a whole new genre. You'd never seen effects like this. You'd never seen a story like this. It was shocking. I saw it in the like I said, early 80s, and it was still shocking.
Yeah.
I was in college when 90 came out. I knew who Tom Savini was. I knew I'd seen all the Romero films up to that time, except for maybe around that time, Jack's Wife or one of the more obscure films. But I'd seen all the zombie films. I remember I was in college at Roane State University, or Roane State Community College, which is a local college, and I was in the student area playing pool, and this trailer came on, and I was about to take a shot, and I was like, "Oh yeah!" And I turned and looked, and I saw it, and I was just like, and I said much louder than I intended to, "I've got to see that film." Tom Savini, in my opinion, made an amazing film, and he did a couple of things that I really like. Um, he knew that you had seen the original, and he kind of turned that against you, like the first guy in the cemetery that you think's going to be a zombie, but he's not. Um, and the guy that looks like he's going to, right after that, he's just walking up and he looks like a normal guy walking. And then the camera comes to the backside, and this guy he's obviously a zombie. His suit has been cut, and he's kind of staggering, but almost like the new Barbara's imagination or hope or whatever you call it. She just sees somebody walking toward her, and she's like, "Oh, good." So, better film. From a technical standpoint, I'll say 90.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the groundbreaking genre making film from the 68 is. And the great thing about 68, even if it is black and white, it pulls you in. It feels like a documentary. You don't know any of these people. Yeah. So to me, that was the great thing until Land of the Dead, the George's Dead films. You didn't know any of these actors. So it was almost like this could really happen.
Yeah.
And then when Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo, and that kind of hurt it a little bit because it's like, I know these people. I know them from something else. It's kind of like when Tom Cruise is in a film and they go, "Oh, look, it's Tom Cruise. Oh, yeah, I'm watching a film." Whereas if it's actors you don't know and they're at least good enough to make you believe they're that character, you fall into it.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the 1968's George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead for this reason. Even though it's both about zombies, I feel George A. Romero's movie is more about doom is imminent. The world is ending. That's what it feels like when I watch that movie. It feels like the world's about to end. And George A. Romero paints that picture grimly and beautifully at the same time. And it's still to this day when I actually had my son watch it with me the other night, and he said, "Daddy, this is scary. Can you turn it?" And I finished watching it, and I was like, it's okay, buddy. It's not real, because he's only 10. It's funny. I was 9 when I watched it. So it's like, but so with 1990, I love Tom Savini's 1990 remake. It really is. It's not just great. It's a tribute to the 1968 movie in a lot of ways.
Oh
It
yeah.
it doesn't do any. If someone asked me what a perfect remake looked like, I would point to this movie and say, this one right here. Tom Savini is a great director and did a great job. I mean, he's an effects guy too, obviously, but his storytelling was good, and it didn't feel like he was trying to copy Romero at all.
Yep.
When you're
Yeah.
watching this, I'm sorry, I'm like rambling on,
Yeah,
but
you're good.
he I loved. Now I know the guy who plays Ben in this is going to go on to do Candyman, but to me, this is the movie where he arrived.
Oh yeah.
This movie here, because when I seen him, I was like, oh my god, this dude is a hell of an actor. Like, it's sort of like you say, when someone's an actor, but in this way, it's not a bad thing because I didn't. This is sort of where someone's acting, you don't feel the doom is imminent. With the way you did with Ramirez. I'd say that's the big separation for me.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Tony Todd is a great actor, and I think probably the best, well, for me, the best scene that he does is right there at the beginning. After he plows through that one zombie, he comes out with that tire iron, he comes and he stabs it in the head, and he just stops for a second. He's like, and he pulls the Charlton Heston from Planet of the Apes, and he's like, GD you to hell,
Yeah.
and he starts to cross himself. I think he does, and I think it's Barbara that starts and is like, well, wait a minute, this is kind of pointless. But that scene with him is just like, oh my god, like you said, this is an actor, this is a man doing his craft. Guy I follow on Facebook, Bill Mosley, is the one that played the new Johnny, and he's had a pretty good career, and I like him. What's funny, Bill Mosley is a warm, funny guy. I see his statuses on Facebook, and he's talking about, yeah, I drove here, came home to my wife, and I pet the cat, and then I watch Devil's Rejects, and here he is being a cross between Charles Manson and whatever serial killer you want to pick, and it's just like, that's that nice guy that's acting, and I think he's a very underrated actor. I'm not, I don't know if I put him up there right up there with Tony Todd, but
Right.
both of them doing great jobs making their character believable and interesting.
Yeah, we're okay. George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead is a 10. Would you put the 1990 at a 10 also?
If not a 10, a 9.9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you want to see a great remake, it's either that or John Carpenter's The Thing,
Yeah.
where it pays tribute to the original. It tells a very similar story, but this person comes along and makes it theirs. You
Yeah.
can tell that they enjoy and appreciate the original, and that's probably why they're doing this. It's like, okay, well, that was that story. This is mine.
Yeah, I love that because you're right. John Carpenter's The Thing is a true like remake as well. It's a thing you could point to. So the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead, what the way this was done was so different.
Yep.
I mean, night and day different from what George A. Romero did. But this
Unintended.
this movie is done where literally you have it's obviously it's in color, but you have comedy with it as well. You have a lot of veteran actors in this,
Mhm.
but they're funny, but they're also terrified too. Is this what kind of sequel do you sort of view this as?
The other sequel, of course, John co-wrote, directed Night. John Russo co-wrote, acted, and co-produced Night. They went their separate ways, still friendly. George did Dawn and Day, and Russo wrote Return of the Living Dead. He got the Living Dead part of the title, and George got the Night, Dawn, Day. And it's, to me, if we have these the sequels where they ignore earlier sequels or they reboot it or whatever. Return is almost like the perfect reboot of Night.
Yeah.
Night is part of it. It's in the mythology, but it's a stepping point to tell that story. I don't know if you've ever read the novel Return of the Living Dead. It has exactly jack squat to do with the film. It's that's all Dan O'Bannon, and it's insane. It's great. It's horror comedies are apparently very hard to do correctly, and that's one done correctly. I think it's on the special feature for the DVD. One of the actors says they got it. They were able to get some money for the actors to have a week or two to sit around and work on their dialogue, and that's why it just snaps like a Howard Hawks film. It's boom, 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 and that helps so much. Return of the Living Dead, I love it. I mean, I used to know some Romero fans that just hated it, and I'm like, why?
Right.
I mean, and I think it's another reason you have the difference in the zombies, or the infected, whatever you want to call them. And I'll just go ahead and say I have yet to see a zombie that terrified me more than Tarman.
Yeah.
When I first, oh Jesus, Lord God in His merciful heaven, that terrified me because I kept trying to figure out. I'd gotten into effects and I'd seen Tom Savini's video and I knew who Dick Smith was and Rick Bottine and Rob Baker and I had ideas how to do certain things, but I could not figure that out until I saw a picture of Alan Troutman, and he's such a skinny guy, and the movements that he was doing, and it's just, oh God, it's like, it's just, he does a great job, and he is terrifying in it.
I'm with you 1,000%. Tarman, you want to talk about one of the most memorable, terrifying zombies? He's it. I mean, bar none. And when I watched Return of the Living Dead, I had watched it right after the remake of Night of the Living Dead. And Tarman scared the shit out of me as a kid. Like, yep. I would literally daydream about that son of a bitch and like not move from my seat. And so it's like, my mom was like, "What are you thinking about?" I'm like, Nothing. Just nothing, Mom. Nothing.
I've always wanted to meet him at a convention and tell him, dude, you scared the living hell out of me. And I figure his response will be, yeah, you're not the first person to say that.
What did you think of them literally saying, and I love how they do this, addressing George A. Romero's movie as a movie?
Yeah, like I said, it was a good way to kind of reboot or relaunch or take the story in the direction they wanted to, but still acknowledge where it all came from. To me, that's the way to do it rather than, well, this sequel number 10, we're going to ignore all the other sequels.
Right.
And I mean, I kind of understand it. You still want to tell it. Think you've got a fresh take or an interesting story to tell. And so you want to make this film, and that's fine. But after a while, it's like, okay, we're going to follow sequel number 1, number 3, and number 7. So ignore all the rest. It's like,
So, what's your favorite scene from Night of the Living Dead, the original?
Favorite. Wow, there's a lot. There's some great scenes. Shocker is, of course, being shot at the end. And I know a lot of people read a lot of racism into that. I really don't see it as racism, like you were talking. Ben is dead tired.
Yep.
and they just see somebody shuffling. I don't believe it is intentional racism. I can see where you can look at it and find racism, but
Yeah.
I personally don't think it is. Probably my favorite is after the truck blows up, Ben makes it back to the house. Finally, Harry lets him in, and they board it up, and Ben just starts beating the crap out of him, and he picks him up and he grabs him by the shirt, and he's like, "I ought to take you outside and feed you those things," because
Yeah.
that's what everybody wants to do to Harry Cooper.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I'll probably go with that one in '68. That's probably my favorite because it's, yeah, that's what you should do.
My
My
actually both
actually
of
the
my favorite
favorite
scenes from
scene from
the
the
original
original
movie and the remake
remake
is Ben getting
band
shot
game
because it's different.
different.
Ben
Ben
dead tired,
Dead High.
and I think
I
it's
think
just
it's just
so
so
because when you're
because when you're
watching, you're
watching
like, oh man, he made it, and he feels defeated still, even though he made it because others didn't, And he to get shot, it's like they thought he was a zombie. Oh my god. And then in 1990, the woman. Well, I love the woman shooting, shooting Ben the zombie because she didn't want to shoot him.
Yeah,
That was like heartbreaking for her.
and then shooting Harry Cooper in '90, he's like, you came back, you came back. She's like, bam, another one for the fire, and it's just like, oh my God, Patricia Tallman, I could just hug you in that moment.
Was that the greatest line in any remake ever? Like literally.
Yeah, it may, if it's not, it's up there,
What
and it's just so cold. No one for the fire, and she's just loading the gun.
they did a Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which I find interesting because they have the grand. Or sorry, I forgot to ask you. What was your favorite scene in Return of the Living Dead?
I don't know if I can pick one, to be perfectly honest with you. There's so many good scenes.
Oh,
Um, I'll give you one, but there's so many. When they first come out of the group comes out of the basement after they save poor Beverly, and the black guy, I can't think of his name, he shuts the door and he's like, "Come back and help me lock this thing, stupid fuckers." It's it is such the perfect reaction to a perfectly irrational moment. He's just like, "Get over here and help me," and I love that, and to me it's so honest. But there are so many, and it has its own Ben moment. Oh my God, is George here?
Am I interrupting anything?
No, George, you're not.
My movies, and I thought I would show up. It's a hell of a commute. The signal's not great from down here. But Butch, it's good to see you again. You got that autographed copy of Zombies Who Ate Pittsburgh still?
Yeah, you missed that. I'll pull it back out just for you.
But everyone's saying, oh yeah, there it is. There it is. See, if you fellas having a good time talking about my movies, there's always Vanilla.
we are.
And Season of the Witch. And Monkey Shines, was that Wes Craven? It was something around then, and we kind of got mixed up on a lot of things.
Mr. Ramiro, I just want to say I think Hollywood has been a dick to you, and they deserve to be in hell.
Who do you think's down here with me? I played shuffleboard with Jennings Lang just yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
I beat him. So Galen Ross was over for dinner the other night, and I got to tell you, people ask me, down here, do we eat, because there is room in hell, and that's why we're not walking the earth. One thing, and everyone's down here, so it's not a judgment, okay? And it's not bad. Utility's very good. It's cheap. But here's the thing. If you eat one of the damned, and they're from Mexico, it tastes like a chicken enchilada. If you eat one of the damned from like Louisville, it tastes like KFC. It does taste like chicken, but just from the region that the deceased came from.
So it's like an international bazaar.
It is. It's like the Epcot of the dead, which was a tie-in that we were gonna do, but John Russo tried to get to it first, and we see how that went. Nothing.
Well, I would think that if there is the proverbial fire, that heat would help with your arthritis.
It's you know what, the elbow's coming back.
There you go. Coming back from the dead, literally.
What was your, first of all, what was your favorite scene in Night of the Living Dead, Mr. Romero?
I like the reporter. That guy had a future.
Why was he not in more?
I just hope that the importance of the Venus probe came through.
It did.
Okay, good. Because Russo, he got that and then did Bupkis with it. And here I am, making more movies. It was supposed to be Dawn of the Venus Probe. And it's funny, there's a performer I knew in Pittsburgh named Donna the Venus Probe, but that's neither here nor there. Well, it was there for a while. Anyway, what else? What questions? Come on, guys. I got 2 shows in Vegas tonight.
Just 2?
Just Are you sure it's only 2?
What? Hold on. Galen, I'll be with you soon. Trust me. I got a soup can and a long string.
What was the most, out of all the films George A. Romero did, guys?
Yes.
What is the top 3 Romero films to each of you?
Oh God. Copperhead. I never made that. That was my Stan Lee movie. Santa Claus the movie, which the Salkinds took out from under me, and Castaways on Gilligan's Island, the second part. I'm mad that my movies weren't political enough. That's what, as it went on, I really feel like I should have been more open about my politics, and I never was.
Well, you did kind of hint at it, and far be it from me to disagree with a legend, a man whose hand I've shaken twice. I'm going to go with Night, Dawn, and Day.
What?
I'm going to go with Night, Dawn, and Day. That's the 3. I mean, that's the trilogy. Another trilogy, and it took me a while, but I wanted up to land. And I think Diary's amazing. Yeah. Out of respect for Mr. Romero, I will not refer to Survival.
Yeah.
Diary was a favorite film of mine. It was my confessional. I deconstructed my own mythos. Inky dinky doo.
You actually did.
My 3 favorite Romero films, obviously Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and I'm not trying to leave Day of the Dead off, but I love the original Crazies. I do.
The first time I saw Crazies was actually the same day I first met Mr. Romero for the first time in Chicago. Me and some friends had gone up there, and they had a showing of that, and then that night was Bruiser for the U.S. premiere. And I'd seen bits and pieces, but had never had a chance to watch all the Crazies. And I know people that have learned of the Crazies through the remake. And the remake's not horrible, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty much a standard action flick. Whereas the Crazies of the 70s, very political. It's probably the first film that you deal with Vietnam vets and a real distaste or a real untrusting of the government. And yeah, it looks like it's made on about $15, yeah, but it tells such a good raw story, just like Night.
Yeah.
2 films, not a big lot of money to go with, but it tells a great story. It's very raw, has a documentary feel in both cases, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with The Crazies.
I just want to say, Mr. Romero, I've read your Resident Evil script up and down,
Yeah.
and your unmade Resident Evil movie is literally the best Resident Evil movie that never got made. Thank you, Hollywood. Actually, no. Fuck you, Hollywood.
Yeah, they didn't do any favors with what got made. I gotta ask when I see that stuff. Paul W.S. Anderson and so on. You got Mila Jovovich at home. Why are you even going out? But seriously, the thing is that if you take what they say about you too seriously, you're in the deep. You're in the caca of the deep, because what is it that I lacked, other than probably habits that would send me to Betty Ford, which I never had. But what is it that I lacked that they went and made what they made? They said, "Oh, George, this is we're gonna go do something else." It's kind of like if Wolfgang Puck showed up at Pizza Hut and they said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Puck, we just don't think you have the qualifications to really, bring it to the Calitza Priazzo experience here. So hit the road, Pally." It was yeah. I'm glad you like that screenplay. It's one of the many that I wish had gotten made.
It is the same. It's the same reason why Wolfgang Puck would get that. It's too much. It's too intelligent. I mean, the first Resident Evil film is a dumb action flick.
Yeah.
And, Mila Jovovich, or however you say her name, I may be saying it wrong. I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, she does okay, but it starts, well, it doesn't start, but it's another one of these films or TV shows where it's like, hey, I got an idea. Let's make a movie about Superman, but Superman's not in it.
Right.
We're going to do a TV show about Superman before he's Superman. Not that that can't be interesting, but you're tied to this interesting thing. I mean, whether you like Superman or not, he's been around for a little while. He's going to be around for a little while. So you have the man right here that made this whole genre. The people that created the game said, yeah, we wouldn't have done this without George Romero. And when they talked about his script, I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God. And then it's like, no, we're not going to do this. And then this shit comes out. I'm just cursing my head off tonight. Sorry.
It's fine.
But,
it's fine.
But
it's
like, what is this?
I refuse to include Sherry Lewis in Lamb Chop. She had a rotten sock. She had a decomposed sock, and it was going to be a dead lamb chop attached to her hand. And I said, you know what? I got artistic integrity. Forget it. And I got to include that in the script. And they said, well, Paul W.S. Anderson will. And didn't he direct it? I don't even know at this point. And that was it. I said, I'm going to go work with Dennis Hopper, and that was life.
What were your thoughts on Return of the Living Dead, Mr. Romero?
It's not the movie I would have made.
Not the movie John Russo would have made.
Not that, well, save. I say save Louisville. Got something needs to. The one I kept was Linnea Quigley's Graveyard Dance. That I wrote on a Post-it late one night, and it somehow made it to the set. And so Dan O'Bannon, you and your little bow tie. Okay, good one on that. O'Bannon was so tough, so difficult to deal with. Clu Gulliger had to have all of the weapons taken away from him around the set because he tried to attack him. That's the story I hear. Carl Hardman never tried to attack me. Even that last name of his, the safest place is in the cellar.
What were your thoughts on the 1990 remake of your classic Night of the Living Dead?
Well, I had a little bit to do with that, here and there. And I think Tom Savini did a marvelous job. I couldn't be happier. Pat Tolman, what an actress. I mean, who knew? So
Maybe you did.
I think it's a fine film. What was that? Who said what? Hell, what?
You said who knew that Patricia Tallman was such a good actress, and I was going to say maybe you did from Night Riders.
Absolutely. The only thing I was upset about with that movie is that I wanted a red light in front of Ed Harris's motorcycle, like right in the front, because we built it, and Glenn Larson comes along and steals the whole damn thing. That was the worst adaptation of one of my movies ever to make it to TV out of all of them. And they all got pilots.
What were you guys' thoughts on the sequel to Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead 2?
If I'm gonna try, if you eat something and it goes through you, you don't eat it again.
Oh man, yeah, he's got a point there. When you're in the mood for dumbness, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I don't even know if dumbness is a word, but I just made it one. It brings back James Karen and Tom Matthews, and it's a weird. It's like a remake, but it's also a sequel because the general's the same guy, and he's like, oh, not this again.
Yep.
Then the Michael Jackson zombie at the end, and you're like, you sit down, you want something dumb, fun, sure, throw it in. But of course, if you want something intelligent to make you think, make you feel, then you go with the man up here, and he'll take care of you. As the truest words ever written in Fangoria magazine was, if you rent a zombie film and it doesn't say the words George Romero, don't expect a George Romero zombie film.
Amen. There is something that I do like about part 2 of Return of the Living Dead, the second one. The boy in the film who trades his comic away, he's actually the grandson of the man who owned the medical facility where they were selling the supplies, which I like that they connected that in that movie.
Little Kevin Unita.
Yeah.
That was my idea.
Unita Medical helps promote some films, plays around here in the Knoxville area.
That's
cool.
what I understand. They certainly provided the audiences.
Yes, they do.
Gentlemen.
Like, you're speaking about Butch. What are you going to call me?
He's referring to you, Godfather.
Yeah.
This is the Godfather here. The Godfather of so many. Godfather of ghouls to begin with.
Yes. The Godfather.
You can act like a man.
We are not worthy.
We are not worthy, no. Is there anything you gentlemen want to add?
You first, sir.
Keep on rising.
I knew it was going to be stay scared. Something to add. What if you've not seen 1968?
Yep.
Maybe because of whatever reason.
Yep.
Hopefully not a dumb one like, I don't watch black and white films. You're missing some of the greatest films ever made, first of all.
Yes.
Second of all, I don't know how you can watch Walking Dead, play Resident Evil, read Walking Dead comic books, God knows what else, without bowing down to the Godfather. That is one thing I do like. I would give Kurtzman his due. He does admit, hey, this is all George. This is all George.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize that Dwayne Jones is the name of one of the characters in the first few issues of Walking Dead. It's the little boy. But wrap it up. Man, you can't watch a zombie film in the genre without that. Like Joel was saying, his mom ejected night 90 and put in night 68. It's like you can't watch the remake without watching the original first. I mean, to me, you got to start there.
Yep.
If you're going to watch a zombie film, you've got to start with Night of the Living Dead 68. And, you know, where you go from that's up to you. What you like from that's up to you, but you got to start at the beginning. You have to start there.
Yeah, I'm thankful that my mom did it the right way. You know, the fact that when I was starting to watch the remake, she hit the eject button. She goes, "No, you're watching this first. You're watching the original first," and that's just who she was. And I love her for it. But I love the fact that George A. Romero, his legacy in horror is forever cemented. He is the man. He's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And yes, I'm taking a Bret Hart quote and turning it for George A. Romero. WWF, you could sue me later.
He's also, you know, all kidding aside, he was also one of the kindest, nicest people I've ever met in my life. You know, they always say, don't meet your heroes. He was an exception to that. Just friendly. You know, he knew he hadn't met me before, and he shook my hand, and we chatted for a minute. I chatted with him again the second time. I tell you, there's a picture of me with him the second time I met on Facebook, and I've been asked a couple times, "Is that your dad?" And thematically, possibly my father, in that sense, due to my love of his films, but just a great guy. And the fact that more and more people apparently don't know him and should is a shame, because it all comes from him, in my opinion. Yes, he was not the only one in the film. Don't get me wrong, but I literally cannot say enough good things about that man, and how sad it is for me and so many other people that he's gone.
It is. It is.
Well, I can't always speak to you.
Well, I'm proud of you, fellas. I like what you're doing. I like when are we going to do a roundtable on Tina Louise? I like
you'll have to get in touch with her for us.
The things I could say.
I thought you already said.
We got one away from a reunion movie, and I still don't think she's going to do it when she gets here.
Gentlemen, all kidding aside, I do want to set up for the Amityville Horror with you two gentlemen, because I do want to have that discussion with you guys. That's going to be something really cool. Is next Saturday good for the both of you guys?
As far as I know, yes. Let me check. I'll get right back with you probably tomorrow or the next day and make sure. But I think so. I don't think there's anything going on.
Okay.
I'll ask Patrick, but if that were a savory oil, I'd spritz it all over my greens.
For Butch Rosenbalm, the late great George A. Romero, and wherever he is, Patrick McRae, thank you, gentlemen, so much. You guys are always fun and a blast and a pleasure to bring on.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate being here.
Thank you. See you guys.
Yeah.
Arrivederci.